One of the highlights of this year's Melbourne Documentary Film Festival in July is a film called Eat Bitter. And it's my great pleasure to be speaking to the creative team, director and producer, etc., of this film, Pasquale Aporo Nakindi, Ningi San, and Mathieu Faure. Welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Hi, thank you, Peter. Hello, everyone. This is Ningyi.
Hi, Ningi. Yes. Hi, everyone. Now, this is such an interesting documentary set in the Central African Republic and is based around these two men from different backgrounds, but working for a common goal, I suppose, Thomas and Yanmin. Tell me about the origins of this documentary and finding these two men to be part of it.
Of course, Peter. I will start with the Chinese character Jianmin. So I was working in Bangui, Central African Republic. At that time, the pandemic hit, and then I was looking for something interesting to do. And then because I didn't come from a filmmaking background, actually, the executive producer of this film he came to me, said, this country is so unheard of, unreported. Maybe you could find something interesting. And then eventually I found that the Western media tends to paint like Chinese presence in Africa from a very heavy political and economic perspective, but not really on the human side. And then if you really look at the data, it's between 1.5 million and 2 million Chinese working in Africa. So in the beginning, I really wanted to tell a personal story. And then I ran into Pascal, who was already an experienced filmmaker because she had already done 2 shorts before this one. And then most important thing is we brought on Mathieu Faure, our French producer, and because he kind of reminded me and Pascal where we were, because he's the most experienced one among us all, and then try to because we three really share this vision of telling a personal, intimate story. That's how we really started the whole process. I don't know if Matt wants to add something, or Pascal wants to add something.
Sure.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Now, obviously the country is in difficult issues with civil war and so on. How easy was it to actually film in the country?
Matt, please.
Yeah, that was very that was really challenging. At first, beginning like the access, Pascal did an amazing job to get the consent from the authorities and the authorizations. And we shot during the pandemic. We shot during like was not a civil war, but there are rumors that rebels were coming to Bangui. So that was really like unsafe, really risky. And we were shooting like, on the river. And on the river, during our production, 7 divers died. It's really risky because you can drown. And we had also like to film in some areas that were under the controls of the rebels. So many like things happened during the production, and Pascal was arrested while we were filming too. So that was not easy at all to film in the Central African Republic. And on top of that, you are filming in one of the most one of the poorest countries in the world. So many, power outages, issues with the food, with water. I mean, so that was definitely challenging. And Pascal can talk more about it.
Wow, what an experience. Yes, Pascal, do you want to add anything there?
Oui, ce que je vais ajouter, c'est juste que on a commencé à filmer dans des conditions. En fait, durant le tournage, il y a eu des conditions difficiles, mais bon, cela n'a pas arrêté n'a pas fait qu'on puisse arrêter le film et qu'on a continué jusqu'à ce qu'on ait ce beau film puisqu'on croyait en l'histoire.
She's saying that, yes, the conditions were extremely hard to film there, but as we were really motivated and we wanted like to share that story with the world, we kept going. And that's how, we put it together. Again, I think that the 3 of us, and of course, like the cinematographer, Orphe, and the sound person, Aaron, the 5 of us, we were like so motivated that at some point you are facing so many hardships that you just keep going, and you just keep going. And that's how we made it.
Well, congratulations on making the film, because I can imagine it was difficult. Tell me more about Thomas and Min, because they're so interesting. Thomas the sand diver and Min the engineer construction manager, all working to build this bank. Because did they give you full permission to film anything that you wanted to film?
Great question. It took me some time. I think same for Pascal. For me, around 2 months to find the character. Because in the beginning, it's like 500 Chinese working in Bangui, the capital of this country. But not all of them have an interesting story per se. They might be just only focused on their work and then wiring money back to China and then going to bed, right? And then when I met Luan, I was like, wow, that's him, because he's very humorous, and then he mingles with locals. He has this very obvious expression of affection towards his wife and son. And meanwhile, he does not mince about his struggles. And we see that unfiltered, character that's like, it's like hitting a jackpot. And then later on, we got to know that even his wife is also unfiltered. So Luan is very honest, and he gave me kind of full permission to film his life in the beginning in his workplace. But then when I got to know that his wife was coming, so spoiler alert, I told him that if I could film his wife, and then his wife completely trusted him, so then she trusted me, and then we just bonded naturally as well. So yeah, it was quite smooth. We got this amazing access, which I really appreciated until the end of the production. Maybe Pascal could tell us a little bit about the access with Thomas.
Yeah.
Lorsqu'on a rencontré Thomas pour la première fois, ce qui nous a beaucoup attiré vers lui, c'est le fait qu'il aimait beaucoup la musique, qu'il exprimait tout dans sa musique, et surtout le fait aussi qu'il était un père célibataire, mais qui s'occupait de ses enfants, quelque chose qui est un peu rare en Centrafrique.
She was saying that we were attracted to Thomas because two main things. First, he was like a quiet person, but through like his art and his music, he was expressing himself. And he's really literal. When you listen to his music and the lyrics, that's him, that's his life, but something that he wouldn't share necessarily during like a normal communication with him, conversation. And what was also pretty different with him is that he was a single father, and he had to take care of the children, and his wife back then left him with the children. So the fact that he was at this crossroad in his life, having to provide food, to provide everything, and at the same time having to take care of the children, that was definitely like an interesting perspective for us.
Absolutely interesting. And of course, being a sand diver
Et aussi,
is so risky. I mean, it's and to make a living out of that is so difficult. With the government can step in at any time, take over land, and so on. It's I was just I found it incredible, that storyline.
Yes, it's really interesting because, and Pascal can talk more about it, but the way that the sand divers are looked down by the population, because some of them are like former rebels, some of them don't have like a lot of education, so people are just like looking down on them. But basically without them, you wouldn't have like any constructions. Bangui wouldn't be like flourishing and wouldn't be, changing without these people. And yeah, they risk their lives every day diving. And as I said, I mean, there were like 7 sand divers who died when we were filming. So it's not something easy, and it takes like a really toll on his body too, because Thomas would have like issues with his hands, with his nose, with his ears. He would bleed. So no, it's not. It's pretty tough.
How difficult. So in terms of directing this and filming, obviously this was filmed over a longer period of time. What were some of the issues, especially the way that Ningi and Pascal, you directed this together? How did all of that work?
Yeah, in the beginning, we just like our two characters, we had our internal cultural difference as well. Yeah, we sometimes Pascal would have to sit me down, trying to make me understand her situation because still I was relatively living in a more comfortable life there. And then Pascal would have to take care of her family. So really it took a lot of effort inside of the team to understand each other's culture and life situation. And also, for instance, the first day when I was shooting, I broke the curfew for the shoot, but then the local crew got late. And then I remember crying, and then we try to explain each other how we want to deal with time. Because for Central Africans, life is so unpredictable. You can have power outage, you can have family needing your help. They don't really necessarily inform each other of where their whereabouts of their life. It's just normal for them, but then they change for me. They try to modify their behavior for me. So we communicated pretty well on the phone about our schedule and everything. So that was difficult in the beginning. And then, of course, with this difficult situation to shoot, we had to really trust each other. Sometimes we were on the water together, so we had to cheer each other up. We try to stabilize the canoe where we were on together. So yeah, it really took the team to trust each other in those situations. But also because I was more on the Chinese side, and then Pascal was more on the Central African side. Even though we went to each other's shoot, still sometimes we really needed Matt to lead us, to guide us, like, oh, we have these two parallel stories, but we have to communicate with each other and then talk about this from a directing perspective, where we're going, which part of each character's life we're trying to track. So we constantly talk. At that point, actually, Matt was based in New York, so we talked constantly over the phone, discussed together where we were going on the in terms of production.
Pascal?
Yeah.
Pascal, tu as quelque chose à ajouter?
Oui, en fait, oui, lors de la réalisation, ce qui a été le système qu'on a mis en place était très bien parce que il fallait qu'on discute toujours ensemble de qu'est-ce qu'on devait faire et tout. Et l'un des défis était le fait que ici la connexion n'est pas très, très, très au rendez-vous. Donc, ça faisait que deux fois, on n'arrivait pas toujours à savoir ou encore on voyait les roches, n'a toujours pas été facile. Donc là, ça a été un peu le défi de la réalisation, mais ce qui était bien, c'est que, comme l'a dit Nini, on a fait des efforts pour se comprendre et puis trouver un terrain d'entente pour pouvoir continuer à travailler ensemble.
Pascal was saying that, yeah, it was complicated at the beginning, but the fact that we were communicating together and the fact that we were always trying to find like a common ground to keep the story going, at the end of the day, it worked. And yes, Nini was saying that what was also important is that it was important for us that Nini was telling the Chinese story and that Pascal was telling the local story. But at the end of the day, we had to intertwine the stories and find also like some common ground and a bridge between them and universal layers. And that's why I think that this story works, because you have universal layers, and wherever you are in the world, you can identify to Luan or to Thomas. It's about fatherhood, it's about immigration, it's about trying to get a better life. It's, trying to always find, again, a common ground and the right balance in your life between your dreams, what you want to achieve, and what you have to deliver on daily basis.
Wow. Well, again, so interesting to hear that, and the communication and the language issues and all that, such an important part of the film. And of course, with all the material that you shot, all the interviews and with Thomas and Jianmin, etc. Tell me about the editing process, because I can imagine constructing the story must have been quite a challenge.
Totally. My brain was really burning. We had an editor. She is from New York and she has this Asian background, which definitely helped. And then eventually Matt also became co-editor. So that really was crucial. And it's really hard. I remember the storyboarding. We look at the wall for like 2-3 hours, putting together, moving around the bits, and trying to find the storyline. And then we were thinking of putting together the two stories under similar themes. How the two characters and two families look at the similar challenges in their life. And then at that moment, Pascal would join online. At that moment, I was already in New York. So me, the editor, and Matt, we would meet in person with Pascal joining online. And then we would send notes to Pascal, everybody as their thought. And then we would all discuss, should we keep this scene or should we take it out? And everyone would have 1 or 2 scenes that they really wanted to keep, but they couldn't because it was not really making sense to the general story line. I have one or two scenes, and Matt and Pascal know what they are. Yeah, it was challenging, but it was such an exercise about storytelling. And I learned so much, during the process.
And that's such an important part of a documentary is to tell the story and to tell it in a way that is clear for the audience. It's how interesting to hear that. As I was watching the film, I was thinking, why is the film called Eat Bitter? And then, of course, later in the film, I hear the quote that one of the people say, I think maybe it's the wife, I'm not sure, eat bitter, then taste sweet. So I thought, how interesting to use that title.
Yeah, it's actually a Chinese expression. Yeah, it's a Chinese expression. Actually, older generation liked to say that. And I remember when I was little, I didn't quite like that because I was like, why can't I just enjoy my life? I think the older generation in China really came from a hardworking background, and materially, it was just difficult when they grew up. But still, we still use that. You eat bitter first. You just you deserve to enjoy the breeze of life later. So that was really a philosophy, Chinese philosophy. And then when we talk about this, and then it was making sense to Pascal, and then she was like, yeah, Central Africans, the same thing. But I feel Central Africans tend to have a more, more joy. They enjoy the, happiness more easily. They would be already happy, having a beer. And then I guess Chinese plan too much sometimes, and that might kill the joy at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, making that documentary was definitely eating bitter for us. It was bitter at first, and now we are enjoying the sweet.
I found it so amusing to have birthday celebrations where you actually have cake put on your face. And I thought that's a bit bitter as well. I'm not sure.
You taste it in your mouth, which is sweet.
How interesting. Now, I'm interested to know whether Thomas and Yanmin have seen your final version of the film and what's happened to them right now.
Of course. So before we did the world premiere in CPH Copenhagen of Documentary Film Festival, I showed it to Jianmin, his wife Hao, and also their son. So their son kind of chased me, like, where can I see the film? Where can I see it? He really wants to know more about his father. So eventually 3 of them watched the film together. And it was a very moving moment. I felt like they understood each other a little bit better. And also I discussed with Hao if there is any scene that made her feel uncomfortable. Actually, there was, and then we talked about it. I was like, I know, in some of the scenes you were showing your vulnerability, but that's really important for the audience to understand what it means for a family to have this kind of mobile life that involves a lot of separation. And then I also explained to her how when we did a very small screenings, how people felt about their story, how they loved her as a character. And then she was really happy. And then she eventually saw the meaning of this film, to the audience. But most importantly, it meant something for the family. So I was really happy. Wherever I went to screen the film, I would tell them, especially last month, we screen it in Shanghai International Film Festival. And she was really happy to know that the audience kind of, stayed until the end of the film. They clapped, they asked me about her current life. It was quite moving for me. And then for now, the couple is still there in Bangui. They might be retiring soon, but I know Luan still thinks he needs more money to feel financial security. He really sees, his dignity lying in self-reliance. So that's where they are.
Uh-huh.
Oh, and then their son is getting married.
Ah, how interesting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Thomas?
even though, yeah, there's no reconciliation between the mother and son, which is sad.
Oh, okay. Well, you can't have everything. But and Thomas, what's his situation now?
Déjà, avant la Première mondiale, on avait fait aussi une petite projection en privé avec tous les personnages et tout. Donc, quand Thomas et Jeannet ont vu le film, ben, ils étaient très contents du fait que on a valorisé leur travail et ça a permis aux peu de gens qui étaient là pour reconnaître la valeur de ce qu'ils font.
There was like a screening in Bangui, like a private screening with the characters and their families. And Thomas and his boss, Janet, were really, really happy about the documentary because it showed how hard they work and how they are worth it for the society. And I think that it was definitely meaningful and impactful for them and for their family and for the people who were there.
Okay, so interesting. Look, congratulations on this film. Are you all working together to make another film?
No, not
Not at the moment. I am in LA, Ning is in New York, and Pascal is in Bangui, and we are working on different like projects. But I hope that we will make like another documentary together. We know how we work together. We know how, I mean, it's funny because we became like a family. I mean, we went through so many things together that every time there was one of us down, the other we're always, cheering up. And I think that, yeah, it's going to stay forever. No matter what we are going to work on in the future, we will always have like this special connection. And that's our baby. That's our film.
Well, again, congratulations on that. You certainly worked well to get this film out there, and it's as you've said, it's playing at various film festivals, including, of course, the Melbourne Documentary Film Festival in July. Look, it's been such a pleasure talking to all of you, Ningyi, Pascale, and Mathieu. Thank you so much for talking with me about Eat Bitter. Thanks again.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.